happy Friday and happy birthday. Maybe not to you, probably not to you. Slim chance, I guess, it's a happy birthday to you, and if so, happy birthday to you. But we're here talking happy birthday to Kyle Lowry, the star of the Toronto Raptors, the best point guard in the Eastern Conference, the apple of my eye and yours, the now 30 years old Kyle Lowry. Assuming you're listening to this Friday morning, if you're listening to it Thursday night, it is not Kyle Lowry's birthday yet, so do not run up on him with some cake, especially if it's not that flour-free chocolate cake that's not too carb-heavy. Kyle Lowry turns 30 on Friday. Here to talk with me about that and not a whole lot else more, as always, William Liu. Will, what's going on, buddy?
Not much, man. I'm just reveling in the last 4 years that Kyle Lowry has given us, and many more to come, hopefully.
Yeah, Lowry's the best. We're gonna talk about that. We're gonna talk a little bit about your boy TJ Ross. We're gonna talk about the midseason malaise. We're gonna, as always, talk about who the Raptors might draw in the playoffs. Not that there's any real point to it. And we're gonna be uncharacteristically optimistic to close things up because it's Friday. And even though the face of the franchise and the team's best player, perhaps one of the team's best 3 players ever, is 30. And now, looking down the wrong end of that aging curve, both in basketball and in life, as I'm going to find out in like 6 weeks. It's all over for me soon. It's all over for Kyle Lowry now. It's all over for all of us really soon, Will. But We're going to get more optimistic by the end of the podcast.
I hope so.
Before we get into that, any stray thoughts from that loss to the Celtics last night, or Wednesday night, which did not include Kyle Lowry?
Well, there you go. You said it right there. It didn't include Kyle Lowry. It didn't include Patrick Patterson. And those are 2 of the 3, the team's top 3 shooters. And, man, that game was ugly. That game was ugly. It's usually when the Raptors' defense is up to snuff, they win. They had that streak going of 33 consecutive games where as long as they held their opponents under 100 points, they would win.
Also a 33-game streak of citing a completely meaningless stat that doesn't control for pace and uses arbitrary endpoints.
Well, yeah, it's quite arbitrary, but I mean, generally speaking, it was an impressive streak at least to have the defense be able to sort of carry out. Like, the offense was typically for the Raptors, the offense is fine, but without Lowry, without Patrick Patterson, but especially without Lowry, that thing was just super ugly, man. In the second half, they started double teaming in the post, and the Raptors just couldn't handle it. They couldn't create good offense, and it was just disappointing. I thought I was most disappointed by DeMarre DeRozan because he's had a lot of good games against the Celtics this year, and I thought he would step his game up with Lowry out, but he kind of just played his regular game, which, is fine, but I thought he would step up. But otherwise, man, it's just a midseason game where you're missing some key pieces.
Yeah, I thought that streak, actually, while we're on it, said more about how comfortable the Raptors are playing at a slow pace than anything else. More so than defense, because, you could hold another team under 100 points, and if you don't score, you're not going to win. So it speaks to their offensive consistency. It speaks to their defensive, kind of just how good their defense can be. But mostly to me, it speaks to how good they are when the game really grinds down and gets played at a slow pace. And despite Boston ranking 3rd in the NBA in pace, that game was played at just 90 possessions per 48 minutes, which is glacial by Boston standards. So it was a little surprising to see Boston respond and to see the Raptors not respond. But of course, no Lowry means no one to take those shots with 5-6 seconds left on the shot clock. One less good defender out there. Lowry's important. Lowry lifts the play of the Toronto Raptors by 9.2 points per 100 possessions per NBA.com, or by 10 points per 100 possessions by Basketball Reference, depending on which possession definition you want to use. He's very, very important. He's very, very valuable, if you want to use another word. A question you posed this week is just how valuable is Kyle Lowry? Not in terms of money, not in terms of wins, but in terms of the league's hierarchy. If we assume Steph Curry is going to win the NBA's Most Valuable Player award for the 2nd consecutive season, and he is, and he should, where does Kyle Lowry rank after Steph Curry?
Well, I feel like it's tiers. So Steph Curry is all alone in his own tier. He should be the unanimous MVP. And then you got like the next tier, which is like Kawhi Leonard, LeBron James. I feel like those 2 are solidly in the next tier. And then
really, you don't think Lowry's in the same tier as LeBron this year for MVP candidacy?
Even in a year where LeBron is starting the decline of his career, and he's had a lot of drama. I think the Cavs are still like 15 points per 100 possessions better with LeBron on the court.
Of course, he's very good, but almost every advanced metric out there says Lowry and LeBron have been essentially even.
Well, there you go, because ESPN real plus minus, which is not a ranking, but regardless, it's a nice little approximate that we have. Lowry's sixth, like just fractionally behind LeBron, and yeah, I don't know. I guess it depends on where you put Westbrook, because I feel like in the third tier, that's exactly where Lowry is, right there with Westbrook, right there with Chris Paul, Kevin Durant, those four, which is
and Draymond Green maybe.
And Draymond, yeah.
Depending on how much you want to separate him from Steph Curry's production.
Yeah, especially on the defensive end, Draymond is giving you all NBA defense and also incredibly versatile in just about every single aspect of the game. So,
by the way, not to belabor advanced metrics, because you have to use them with a whole bouquet of things when you're evaluating these kind of things. Lowry has a pretty decent edge on LeBron by Nylon Calculus's DRE, which is a daily real plus minus estimate. Lowry ranks 6th.
I forgot about
LeBron.
DRE.
Yeah, forgot about DRE. LeBron ranks 9th. Lowry 6th. Not a huge gap, but like a little bit of a gap.
Yeah.
Like a 13% gap in total value for the season.
Yeah, and I think that the one thing we should all be taking into account is, okay, so the Raptors have like the 4th best record in the league, which is insane, because if you look at the Raptors' 2nd best player, which is DeMarre DeRozan, like DeMarre DeRozan's a good player, he's an all-star, but like
gonna get that money.
He's gonna get that money for sure, but compared to the second guys that these other teams have, it's not even close. Like, there's no way the Raptors, based on the talent that we have on the roster, should be ahead of the Thunder in the standings. But I mean, like, they are, because Lowry's just that good. It's crazy, because you have Durant and you have Westbrook with the Thunder. You also have a lot of other talented players.
Yeah, and again, not to belabor advanced metrics, because it's honestly, I'm just using it as a way to sort names right now. But you talk about two guys on one team, by real plus minus based wins, Curry and Green are 1 and 2. Westbrook and Durant are 2 and 9. Chris Paul and DeAndre Jordan are 7 and 8. LeBron and Kevin Love are 5 and 14. The Raptors' second best player doesn't appear in the top 40.
Yeah, exactly. And
he doesn't appear in the top 60.
And again, it's not just real plus minus. Like, you can look at almost any sort of ranking or any sort of statistical breakdown of Lowry's performance. If you want to just look at lineup data, Lowry's like a part of all of them. And if you swap Lowry with someone else in those lineups, they tend to not do as well. Like, the Lowry plus bench units are awesome. The Lowry and the starters unit is decent.
I wanted to point out, actually, I was going to mention it later, but it's an important development, possibly for getting Lowry a little bit of rest down the stretch. And obviously we didn't get to see it Wednesday because Patrick Patterson was out too. Right. The DeRozan plus bench lineup has been really, really good too. Not like Lowry good, because that's been one of the best lineups in all of basketball, but they are plus 11.6 per 100 possessions.
Yeah.
DeRozan plus the bench.
Wow.
That's
great. Yeah.
That's really encouraging. And like, it's only 200 minutes or whatever, but that any lineup without Lowry is surviving. Of course, that 11.6 is almost literally half of how badly the Lowry plus bench unit rolls teams.
Still.
So yeah, grains of salt.
Yeah, man. And I think that it's weird for us to think that we have an MVP sort of caliber player, but I mean, in a universe where Steph Curry exists, like, that's it. That's the discussion for MVP. It's just Steph Curry. Maybe if you want to elevate Kawhi, but I really feel like Steph Curry's in a class of his own. But the fact that Lowry's even up there with these like certified like mega talents, it's so impressive. And there's a real case. I know that, I don't know, at least when I posited the idea to myself, it seemed ridiculous. I felt like I was a homer trying to like put Lowry up there, but Lowry's really, like, there's a really good case for Lowry being on the MVP ballot, which I believe stems 1 to 5. I feel like Lowry's has been the 5th most valuable player to his team this season.
Yeah, it gets complicated because Separating Green from Curry and then deciding between Durant and Westbrook and who you want to attribute more of it to, or whether you believe two guys can be of equal value and still compete for most valuable. There's going to be, I could see 7-8 guys kind of splitting some votes. You know what? I wouldn't be surprised if the chip on Damian Lillard's shoulder has gone so far that he gets 1 or 2 votes too. Just because, you don't want him to have any more chips on his shoulder, right? Next year he'll be running around rapping about how he wasn't the MVP. He was disrespected.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Sorry, Damian Lillard, for not giving me the MVP.
Yeah. Even Chris Paul, too, is a name we haven't really mentioned much. And, James Harden is trash, but, James Harden's also the second, maybe third best offensive player in basketball.
Yeah, that's true. I mean,
I'm not saying these guys have cases against Lowry. What I'm saying is that I think this is going to be a year where you're going to see Curry 1, you're going to see Kawhi and LeBron probably 2-3, and then you're going to see a chunk of guys split votes a bunch of different ways. You're going to see 4 or 5 different guys get second place votes, 5 or 6 different guys get third place votes, and it's really hard to project where a guy might wind up. I have Lowry 5th on my ballot.
Yeah, likewise.
Which, and honestly, this is how good Lowry has been, is I have him as 5th on my MVP ballot. Kyle Lowry for the Toronto Raptors, and I'm worried to say that out loud that people are going to think it's too low.
I mean,
that's the kind of year Lowry's turning in.
There's a case, you could maybe put him 4th, but, this is what I was saying with the tiers stuff, 1, 2, 3, and 4, I guess, obviously 1 is Curry, and then 2, the second tier. I mean, if you want to put Lowry ahead on the top of the third tier with guys like Chris Paul, Russell Westbrook, Kevin Durant, there's a case to be made, man. I used to describe Kyle Lowry's game as a slightly watered down version of Chris Paul's, without as much playmaking. But this year, Kyle Lowry's been better than Chris Paul, the point guard. Who Chris Paul had to carry the team for a long time with Blake Griffin out, so.
But that's on Chris Paul too. Kyle Lowry would never let one of his guys get drunk at Soto and punch out an equipment manager.
Yeah, well,
that wouldn't fly. They wouldn't be out for late night eats if Lowry was around,
There you go. Yeah, him and DeMar DeRozan would at most go to the drive-thru and decide to come back.
McFlurries.
Seriously, man, he's 30 years old now. He can't be going to McFlurries.
He can't be doing that, man. You can take your kids for McFlurries.
There you go.
And maybe have a bite or two. I feel like that's one of the best parts of having kids is that there's all this food that you get for them, but they're never gonna finish it.
Sure. Yeah. All right. But man, yeah. Seriously, Kyle Lowry he's been tremendous, and I think it's just crazy to look back sometimes and think when the Raptors first got him, he was entering his prime supposedly on his age curve, and he was inconsistent. He came off the bench for Jose Calderon, and most players in the NBA have come off the bench for Jose Calderon after starting over Jose Calderon. That's true, yeah. Jose Calderon has a lot of notches on that belt, but
yeah, that's how you get your lifetime backup point guard card.
How is he still starting
in the NBA
in New York? Why don't they just start Jerry and Grant? Your season is over. Develop your players.
Why are they still playing Carmelo Anthony 40 minutes a night?
Yeah, well, that's true. You got to up that trade value, baby. He's going to be going to the Cavs, apparently.
Well, now that trade kicker comes. No, they want to go somewhere warm.
Oh, right.
That's what Melo said.
There you go. Well, Orlando's got all that cap space. I mean, let's just make it happen in Orlando.
Yeah, Orlando's kind of watched as a city, though, isn't
it? That's perfect.
No offense to anyone listening. Yeah.
These stars are amazing.
Yeah. You know what? If they want to do something really different, though, no one has ever built a super team in Toronto.
What would it?
I mean, Steve Stamkos and PK Subban are about to, and the Jays kind of have a super team, but no one's done it in basketball.
Well, there you go. There you go. This is how you take advantage of Kyle Lowry on a $12 million a year contract. All right. You build that Steph Curry-esque Warriors team here in the 6th, and we make a run for the finals, man. Come on, LeBron.
You want to know what's maybe even more insane than Curry's season and Lowry's season is that I was just about to ask when you mentioned Lowry's contract. Oh, well, then is Lowry the best value in basketball? And then I remembered that Steph Curry makes $11 million.
Yeah, that's not even fair.
It's like that's the only way to put it. It's not fair. Like you can't have a balanced competitive league when the 2-time MVP and the best player in the world makes $11 million.
Yeah. Oh, I'm looking at the real plus minus leaderboards right here. Nikola Jokic is ninth in the league.
Yeah, but don't come with that. That's very hard for a rookie to do. Like usually advanced metrics hate rookies, especially on bad teams because bad teams are bad, and a lot of these advanced metrics, it's hard to tell. Sometimes it can be hard to suss out one person's impact from another. It can be kind of a high tide floats all boats kind of thing, rises all boats. But yeah, so for Jokic on a bad team as a rookie to be up there is awesome. I would not go as far as, I think it was Jeremiah Engelman on ESPN the other day who said Jokic should be the rookie of the year.
What? No.
I think if you're looking at advanced stats to look past Karl Anthony Towns, you're overthinking the rookie of the year.
It's not even a debate, man. Come on. We've got future.
It's Norm Powell.
Well, of course. Did you see Norm Powell in the last game against Boston? 1 for 3.
Attacking out of the corner and then kicking to an open shooter?
Yeah.
Like, no sarcasm. Like, no, that's a huge development in his game.
No, he's found his niche, like, relatively quick. He's, like, found his footing in the NBA.
Someone in the comments the other day, and, like, bless their optimism, but someone thinks he's, like, on the Westbrook path because his north-south driving is so strong, which he's not.
He's
but
much
like,
older than Westbrook when Westbrook first started.
Yeah, and he's not that talented offensively.
No.
He's good, and he can get to the line. I think he's a guy that could get a couple free throws a game and develop that corner three. But, like, he doesn't need to be Westbrook. He literally needs to have a use, and he'll provide a huge surplus value on that 3-year minimum deal he's signed.
Yeah, well, he needs to copy that, like, Trevor Ariza style.
Of just shooting all the corner threes?
Seriously, just hone that corner 3 game. I know his like driving, he's got handles and he's got enough of a drive that he should be able to use it once in a while. But like Trevor Ariza used to do that. Now in Houston, no one's allowed to touch the ball except James Harden, so you might as well just shoot it when you have him in the corner. But
and Corey Brewer against the Raptors.
Oh God, Corey Brewer.
He gets to shoot as much as he wants, and
the drunken dribbler. Anyway, yeah. Circling back to Lowry.
So yeah, Powell's awesome. What's that?
Just circling back to Lowry, like it's ridiculous. Yeah. This is like, would you say this is the best trade in Raptors history?
The number 12 overall pick for Kyle Lowry. Let's see where that Knicks pick ends up because getting a first for Andre Bargnani is pretty good. Getting Powell and a first for Gravis Vasquez is pretty good.
And the cap room to sign Corey Joseph. Yeah,
yes.
Seriously.
Getting Lucas Nogueira and a year of Lou Williams for John Salmons was pretty good.
Seriously, man, Masai Ujiri's pretty great. He is.
That Juan Dixon trade back in the day.
That was not good. The one where we traded for Juan Dixon, or the one where we got Primoz
Both
Brezec?
of them. Both of them.
I was so excited for Primoz.
Getting Juan Dixon and then sending who did they give up? Fred Jones for Juan Dixon, and then they flipped Juan Dixon for the gangster Primoz Brezec.
I was excited for Primoz because. I think in his first game or something, he hit like a jumper, and I was like, oh man, now we can have all jump shooting bigs. Like, this is going to be great. No. Primoz.
I liked him because he actually acted like a gangster. Like he was fake thugging, which was hilarious. But in terms of actual impact and not just asset cost or funny trades to laugh at or whatever. Yeah, of course. You turn the number 12 pick into 4 years plus next year of Kyle Lowry. And it's not just that you had to sign him to that deal, but really you turn the number 12 overall pick into 5 years of Kyle Lowry plus the chance to re-sign him again next summer. And the 3 best regular seasons in franchise history. Yeah.
That's great. Seriously.
Yeah, I'd say that's a terrific trade.
Yeah, there's a credit to Lowry too. And lost upon all of this is just the fact that he was able to sort of write his career, that meeting with Masai Ujiri to decide what kind of player he wants to be, and honestly, he's really turned that around. He's really become a great leader for the team. All the weight that he lost in the offseason, he's been remarkably healthy this year, and I think that's really huge, man. So yeah, credit to Lowry. I'm thrilled. I can't believe it that we have one of the top 5 MVP candidates, man.
So here's something crazy.
Yeah.
What do you actually? Don't look this up. See if you can guess. What is the highest the Raptors ever finished in MVP voting?
Like third, probably Vince, and like 01.
Not close. Not close.
All right. Chris Bosh, like fifth.
In 2001, Vince Carter finished tied for 11th.
Okay, well, okay. That's...
In 2000, Vince Carter finished 10th. In 2007, Chris Bosh finished 7th. That's the highest.
7th.
That was the Dirk MVP year.
Oh, yeah.
Bosh finished 7th. He averaged 22.6 and 10.7.
47 wins.
On 49.6% shooting. Yeah. And they made the playoffs.
That wasn't even Bosh's best year in the Raptors, man. Before he broke his face, he was like 24 and 12.
It was his most valuable year, though, right?
Apparently.
Yeah.
Anyway.
That's
look, Lowry's great,
good for
man.
Chris Bosh. Yeah, Lowry's awesome. So here's a question. Not just by MVP. Is this the best season in Raptors history from an individual perspective?
So is Lowry having the best season of all time for the Raptors?
For the Raptors, yes. Definitely, he's certainly not of all time. I can answer that definitively.
Honestly, this is
I know
where
this is a tough one to put you on the spot, but
it's this is where it's tough for me because I did miss like all the prime Vince years, so I can't speak to the height of it, but like it's better than any season Chris Bosh ever had, which is crazy. Chris Bosh and Jose Calderon used to come out of the gate, run pick and pop, and like Chris Bosh would have 18 points in the first quarter. Like that would just happen like 10 times a year. But I think Lowry's been better than that, honestly. I think him being able to handle the ball is huge. Him being like the smartest player on the team and like making high IQ plays, like help defense rotations, just like clever passes or like nifty drives to get open shots. Man, this is the best Raptor season that I've seen from any individual player. And I've been watching since like 2005. So this narrowly edges out Danielle Marshall for me.
Danielle Marshall in 2004.
Killed it.
40% from three.
Seriously, man.
Vince's 2000 and 2001, I mean, at least statistically, are a little superior. Lowry's probably going to top Vince's 2000 in terms of like win shares and catch-all metrics like that. But Vince's 2001, he averaged 27.6 points, 5.5 rebounds, 3.9 assists, 1.5 steals, 1.1 blocks, and he shot better than Lowry from the floor and from three, and got to the free throw line more.
That's terrifying.
Terrifying. How did the Raptors squander that?
How did we turn that?
He played 75 games that year, too.
How did we turn that into Alonzo Mourning and 2 Williamses and Joey Graham?
Ugh. Why? Don't come with that. That was Vince's third season.
Crazy. Yeah, his career, like, he didn't really reach a peak. You know what I mean? He kind of, like, peaked in his first 5 years.
I'd call that a hell of a peak.
No, but he, like, peaked in the first 5 years and then, like, started slowly declining. It's weird.
Yeah, like from his second year to, I mean, excluding that one really bad year he had in Toronto, from his second season to from 1999 to 2007, he averaged 25 points, like 25, 5, and 4.
Yeah.
Which is that's pretty good, and his numbers were more or less the same every year. The year we just talked about was his peak. Like his top statistical season. And then from there, and now he's still kicking it.
He's still kicking it with the super weird Grizzlies, man. God, I love that Grizzlies team.
Okay.
It's great. It's a Suicide Squad Grizzlies. Soon to be
I'm a big wrestling fan, so when they're in Survivor Series next year.
There you go.
As a unit. Okay. Yeah. Anything else on Lowry?
No, man, this is great.
He's awesome. Yeah, he's leading the best Raptors regular season team ever. Yep. And like if they win a playoff series, like without question, the best Raptors team ever and the best Raptors era, like the best chunk of time in Raptors franchise history.
Yeah, that's true. That is very true.
But they got to win that playoff series.
They got to win that playoff series. And a quick check of the standings, which I think is going to be outdated by the time this podcast comes out. Regardless.
Not seriously, though. Like, it's a Thursday night.
Hey, the Chicago Bulls are back in 9th. Only one.
Yeah, and they play the Knicks again, who apparently have their number.
Yeah, what the hell, man? Why are they losing to the Knicks?
Okay, so Indy, Cleveland, and Chicago all play Thursday night, which have an impact. So the Raptors will either be 2 or 3 games back of Cleveland. I think the chase for the 1 seed is probably done. We'll double back to that in a sec. But Indiana, Detroit, Chicago, Washington, all within 2.5 games of each other. Could be as much as 3 games separating them after Thursday night. It's a mess. Like there are fans who want to try to jockey for a certain position to draw a certain opponent. Even if you wanted to do that and you convinced me that they should do that, I'm not a believer in that. You would have no way to know who you're going to draw. Like probably until the final 2 games of the season.
Yeah.
And then if you're the Raptors, you might not be able to lose. You end the season with the Knicks, the Sixers, and the Nets. You might not be able to lose if you wanted to.
Yeah, no, exactly.
Like Norman Powell's beating those teams.
Well,
Delon Wright and his defensive rebounding.
What do you think of Delon Wright? He had an extended run against the Celtics.
I thought he looked fine. The 3 of 10 shooting didn't do him justice, I didn't think. I thought he did well pushing the ball in transition. I thought, he operated with a lot of lineups that had no spacing at all. And I thought he did fairly well considering that. I really liked that he was cracking back to help on the defensive glass. That's something he did super well in college and then was struggling with in the D-League. He just wasn't coming back for defensive rebounds for a little bit. So it was nice to see him. I think he had 7 defensive rebounds and 1 on the offensive glass. So that was really encouraging. I thought he did well. I thought for an offense that had no space at all and he was being choked out the entire time, I thought he ran things fairly well.
Yeah,
it was better than his Detroit game.
Oh, yeah, no, for sure. There was no Steve Blake this time to burn him. Just Terry Rozier, who didn't really go off. But, yeah, man, DeLon Wright, I feel like once he's confident in his abilities to, actually score the ball, because he looks really hesitant to shoot at all times. And I don't just mean jump shots, which I know is a bit of a weakness for him, but, even slashing the hoop and stuff, he is still pretty slightly built. And going to the basket as aggressively as someone like Corey Joseph, I guess that should come in time. But I like his playmaking, man, and his handles. He crossed up Avery Bradley really bad.
It's a tough dude to cross up.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
Usually you just get punched in the mouth, I think.
No, that's Marcus Smart.
Yeah, I don't mean literally. I just mean that's a tough dude who does not get clowned.
Yeah, except for Marcus Smart, that is literally.
Okay, so 1 or 2 seed. Do you care?
No. And honestly, this is a weird thing to say, but I don't want the Raptors to have to face the pressure of columns saying wow, the Raptors finished in first, but are they really the best team in the East? Those columns, because it's such an easy. Obviously, even if they finish in first, what does that really mean? It doesn't mean anything. And the Cavaliers are still the top dogs in the East, and an extra home game, I guess, would help. But I almost feel like for the Raptors, if we're going to play something in the Eastern Conference Finals against the Cavaliers, I almost think it's better to start on the road. Wet your feet on the road. There's a little bit less pressure. And if you fall down 0-2, it's okay because you've still got the home games coming up. So, and realistically, I don't think the Raptors can beat the Cavs. So, no, yeah.
That's the thing. If home court in Game 7 is going to matter, it means 2 things. It means 1, things have gone really, really well.
Very, very well.
So whatever you did to get there, not that ends always justify the means, but if you're in a Game 7 situation against the Cavs, regardless of where that game's played, things have gone really, really well. It also means that everything was tight enough anyway that it may not matter that much. Home court in the playoffs, maybe for a single game swings things 4 points. So if they lose on a buzzer beater, if they lose the same way they lost to the Nets in Game 7 of the Eastern Conference Finals to the Cavs, then sure, it'll suck to look back and be oh, well, maybe if Lowry hadn't rested those 2 games. But at the same time, you won't be able to do that because if Lowry didn't rest those 2 games, maybe he's 1% less as fresh for the Eastern Conference Finals, and then the Raptors get rolled in 5 games like that. The margin for error would be so small in a series with the Cavs anyway. I don't know. I think everyone's kind of overthinking it. I think we're even a little guilty of overthinking the rest stuff too, myself especially, because I'm just risk averse. There's a lot that goes into things beyond just minutes played, and there's still a month of season left almost.
Yeah, but no, but it is nice now
I don't
that
know.
Dwayne Casey has done his due diligence with rest. I mean, it's not just necessarily rest, but it's also like letting players come back when they're fully healthy. You know what I mean? Like if you're the Bulls,
Yeah.
okay, well, if you're the Bulls, you're like your training staff is awful. But if you're the Bulls and you're 2 games over 500 and you're out of a playoff spot right now, if you have a player that's like about to come back, you rush him back. You rush back Jimmy Butler from knee injury and then have him injure his knee right afterwards.
Butler looked bad last
Yeah,
night.
seriously, what the hell are they doing?
Wednesday
Why
night.
are they trying so
know.
desperately to salvage the season? Stop trying, Bulls.
Because
quit the playoffs.
Yeah, I know you want them to, but like the reason to that is that there's no way management can take that bath, like where you run Thibodeau out of town and there's all this like public.
Yeah, but even if they make
he said, she said,
seed,
and
it doesn't make a difference. The season has been an undeniable failure for the Bulls. You know.
Yeah, is it a failure though if they make the 7th seed and beat the Raptors?
I swear to God, I've already told my Bulls
just
friend
saying,
that I'm not friends with them ever again. I feel like if the Raptors lose, if the Raptors get swept in the first round by the Bulls, the Raptors franchise needs to just give itself up to Seattle. Got to end basketball in Canada. Trade Wiggins, like make him an American. Just no more reminders of basketball. That's how emotionally wrecked I would be if the Raptors lost the Bulls. Yeah.
We have some news.
Oh, breaking news.
Yeah, we're back to this. Actually, one thing first before I forget. Have you started Boys Among Men yet?
Yeah, I have. Yeah, I'm like 70 pages deep.
Okay, so I'm leaving today for a road trip, and it's not here yet.
Oh, that sucks.
It was supposed to be here.
That sucks.
Yeah. I do have Glockner's Chasing Perfection, though.
Nice.
So
nice.
I'll read that. The news.
Right.
RG3 has signed with the Cleveland Browns. My question to you, how many minutes until he signs Rich Paul? Like that deal is getting stopped at the finish line, and then he's signing Clutch Sports, and then he's signing with the Browns, right?
I mean, I know very little about football.
But you know about Rich Paul and the hold on Cleveland.
Oh yeah.
This is a Cleveland question. This is a LeBron question. Especially the day after J.R. Smith changes his agent and to Clutch Sports, and there's a glowing Chris Haynes piece about the J.R. Smith LeBron James friendship.
Funny how that works. The coincidences of the world are so hard to explain. Hey, listen,
Man.
Robert Griffin III. I think he's a talented guy, man. I want him to be healthy. That's it.
Here's an idea that we kind of just glossed over. LeBron, Melo, Dwayne Wade, Chris Paul. They want to play together. You know what conference looks really good?
Yes.
The Western Conference.
Sure. Yeah, for sure. Go to the West. LeBron, for once in your damn career, go to the West.
Yeah.
Seriously.
I hear Sacramento is nice. And they're like a really stable ownership.
Definitely.
Actually, compared to Cleveland, Sacramento might be normal.
LeBron will be the best GM Cleveland or Sacramento's ever had.
Yeah. It's Portland's a lovely city.
Portland is a lovely city.
It's not warm like they want. Phoenix is warm. And they're all going to be old heads at that point.
There you go. You get to play with PJ
So that's
Tucker.
a good place to retire. Yeah.
Who doesn't want that?
Yeah. All right. So we talked about the playoffs. It's too tough right now to figure, like, we could talk about those 4 teams over and over again. It doesn't really matter until we have a little more clarity where they're going to finish and where the Raptors are going to finish, which is probably second.
It's definitely second, I feel like, almost. The Cavaliers have an easy schedule to finish up the season, too.
Yeah. We've joked a little bit about, if the Bulls get the spot. The Raptors have shown a little bit of malaise lately. Part of that is resting guys. Part of that is minor injuries. And really, before Wednesday, they had won 7 of 8 over a stretch in which they got DeMar DeRozan a game of rest, got Luis Scola a game of rest, lost James Johnson, Patrick Patterson, and Jonas Valanciunas for stretches, and now they lost a game that they were without Lowry and Patterson. Things aren't really bad. Their play hasn't looked all that great, like as good as they've looked at their peak outside of that Atlanta game maybe. But the Indiana game, they were pretty good. But there's nothing to worry about here, right? Like it's just the dog days of the season and the fact that they're playing 2 or 3 men short every night and still winning, by the way.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is also goes back to the schedule the standings, where the Raptors are in this comfortable niche where like they're like 7 full games up on third place. So there's really no way for the Raptors to drop all that much. So it's actually nice to be able to rest your players sort of now in this like general part of the season instead of like right before the playoffs and then you're like a little bit rusty. So I think it's fine. I think it's seriously, the Raptors only really work when all the pieces are there together, and when you don't have it, there's a lot more struggle that goes in. Like if you just give DeRozan the ball to like make him operate the offense all the time, you see a lot more struggle in the offense. And so this is fine. I think that one of the most positive signs is their defense was a problem, especially coming right out of the All-Star break. Since then, they've been solid, man. They haven't lost on account of their defense recently.
Other than the Houston game.
Oh yeah, the Houston game.
But I guess that was like 9 games
ago.
that
was like inclusive. I think that was the one that really sparked the Raptors' defense problem thing, which has kind of died down now. But.
Well, maybe not necessarily because they played that awful first half against Brooklyn coming out of that.
That's true. But then they turned it around. Turn that around into like a...
Yeah, that's when they started the little 7-8. That was a quality win against Atlanta. I didn't love the way they played against Miami in the overtime game, but it was fine. Chicago, let's just not talk about that.
The Chicago game is depressing as hell, but I don't know, man.
They beat Milwaukee without DeRozan. They beat Indiana in OT in like another good defensive performance. They stomped Boston.
Yep.
They beat Orlando,
Orlando's pesky, whatever.
They didn't play very well against Orlando offensively.
Yeah, they
I mean, you score 105 points and don't play well offensively.
Seriously, that's where we're at right now.
So on nights down the stretch when Lowry or DeRozan or whoever if they sit more, you turn to other guys. We talked about Norman Powell a little bit. Patrick Patterson's been a guy who's come in and brought a ton of defensive energy. Bismack Biyombo as the replacement center has been terrific. Are we still in on TJ Ross, who went 5 of 18 against the Celtics on Wednesday, and 18 shots.
I know, it's beautiful, right?
It's awesome. He took more shots than anyone else in the game.
Yeah.
If Terrence Ross has learned one lesson this season, it's take your shot.
Shooters shoot. All right. Okay. I just contextualized that with last night, or Wednesday night, but. Yeah, man, the Raptors did not have a lot of shooting on the floor. Terrence Ross was undeniably their best shooter, and especially for the second unit when it was mostly Delon Wright trying to play around Bismack Biyombo screens and Jason Thompson taking airballing corner threes and shit.
Shocking that teams aren't respecting that three yet. The one Jason Thompson's hit twice in his career.
All right. He works on it in practice. He shoots it in the game. Yeah, look, Terrence Ross, he fired up a lot of questionable shots. But
I feel like you could just say Terrence Ross fired up a lot of shots.
Period.
Questionable might be redundant because he's, Lowry likes to talk about DeMar DeRozan as a bad shot maker, and that's talking about like difficult shots at the rim through a ton of contact or like herky-jerky fadeaways or whatever. But Terrence Ross, maybe not questionable, just like he certainly doesn't question it. He just fires.
It's great. He's turned into like a mini J.R. Smith. It's amazing, and I think that yesterday I can't really fault him too much just because like there weren't that many options to go with, right? So you have to have somebody take the shots, and Ross took the shots. He took a lot of shots. I think it's nice for his confidence. I think the next step for him is just to find nuance and find some counters. Like he's done better this year of like when teams run him off the 3-point line, what he's gonna do. Because last year he used to just pull up from like 2 feet inside the arc, which was not a great play. But now he's got a couple of herky-jerky moves. He can get to the hoop. Like he gets to the hoop much more than he ever did before, which is good. But it still doesn't mean that he's good at driving. She should use that athleticism a little bit more. But he's also had some nice passes and stuff. So I don't know. It's just nuance to the next step for Ross now that his confidence is back.
Yeah, I feel like with shooters too, their cold streaks and hot streaks are always magnified by just the variance that comes with 3-point shooting. Like we might not be talking about this downturn that Ross has had if he had shot well from 3 over the last 6 games, which he hasn't. And he's still scoring like roughly his averages, but like he's 9 for his last 32 threes over the last 6 games, which isn't great. It's not terrible, but when you're shooting like 38% on the year, you make 1 or 2 more threes over that stretch. You make 1 or 2 more threes on Wednesday night, and suddenly your game doesn't look too bad. Since that magical December 7th date, Still averaging 10.7 points and knocking down 39.8% of his threes.
Yeah, man. The Raptors need Terrence Ross.
He's fine.
He's like the only, well, aside from Lowry, he's like the only good spot up player we have.
Until DeMarre Carroll comes back.
Until DeMarre Carroll comes back. When he comes back. Right now he's not on the road trip, but I don't think people should panic on not being on the road trip just because.
Panic! It makes no sense for him to be on the road
Players
trip.
don't typically come back on the road trip anyway. Teams like to have their players come back during a home game where they have all their facilities ready in place in case anything happens. And
yeah. Well, also, it's 3 games in 4 nights. Yeah. It's travel each time. They have 1 practice day in that stretch of 4 days that they've been gone. And flying is like bad for injuries. It increases swelling, and flying is not good for you.
Yeah.
So like, why bother? And like, it's not like he was going to play Friday and Saturday.
Exactly.
Like he was only going to play one of those games probably at the most. So
does it feel like he's close though? You were at practice. Was you just?
He wasn't there
at practice.
Yeah, so I don't know if that meant that he was sitting out. It was a rehab day. He could have been in New York again, getting more follow up on his knee. They didn't provide an update, but he wasn't out there when it opened up to the media, and everyone else was still doing like their post practice drills.
All right, wow.
Which is concerning, or it's not. Though one thing I've kind of been saying about it is like the quiet is not necessarily good quiet or bad quiet, because the Raptors are quiet for the sake of quiet.
That's true. That's true.
What else we got? Okay, so let's recap. The Raptors are second in the East. We don't know who they're going to play, and they're not playing, at their absolute peak because it's the dog days, but they're also getting guys rest, taking their time with guys coming back from injury. They've got role players stepping up and playing well. They've got depth players stepping up and pushing for role player roles. They're going to, with one more win, have the most in franchise history. With one more win after that, they'll have their first 50-win season ever. Which, depending on how you want to shake history, they're either the last franchise to do that or the second last franchise to do that, depending on how you treat Charlotte's history. Things are pretty good, and I would say even if you're only assuming a DeMarre Carroll at 75-80%, there are reasons for optimism. You had 9 of them recently. You had a great article this week that kind of rallied up the troops to... this time of year, people can start looking at the negatives more than the positives, or talking themselves out of playoff confidence, given the way the last 2 years have gone. You wrote a great piece at williamlou.blogspot.com or williamlounba.blogspot.com.
Yeah, just find. Just go to my Twitter account and find it.
At
Sometimes
at William_Lou.
Yeah, there we go.
Sorry, cool. Man, botching your stuff all over the place.
Proper platform with the blog hosting, but regardless, yeah.
No, it's fine, man. So. You gave us 9 reasons. Don't give us all 9 now, because I got to wrap this up in a couple minutes.
Right.
But give us the gist of that. Why are you so happy and optimistic when life is trash?
Well, I think the impetus of writing this thing was it was after the Raptors. I think they took down. It was either after the Celtics game or.
Celtics or Magic?
Yeah, it was a Magic game. Yeah, it was just weird, like to see the Raptors play, with malaise, and like they didn't look really great throughout a lot of it. They had some key players coming not in the lineup, but Orlando's making a hard charge. But the whole time I was confident, and the Raptors, in the end got the win. And it's just weird for me as a Raptors fan to like, within the game itself, like. I do these game notes, and I'm trying to like jot individual trends and these micro things that happen. But like when you like step back and look at this team, it's quite beautiful where the franchise has managed to turn itself into this place where it's a lot of things have gone beautifully right for the Raptors. And unless you take a step back and like soak that in, like we might not be appreciating the season as much as we should be, because I think everyone's living in fear of the playoffs, and I guess that's, one way to look at it. But the other way to look at it is, like, this is one of the most enjoyable stretches we're going to have as a franchise. It's like we were saying earlier, this is quite possibly the best season in franchise history. All they need to do is win one round to secure that. And I think that I just wanted to take some time and just recognize some of those things. So, like, you got, like, obviously Lowry's transformation is really great. DeMar DeRozan's also made a huge transformation, and I've sort of talked about reconciling my feelings towards DeRozan, because like DeRozan is a divisive player. He still relies a lot on long twos. He's still a bit of a sinkhole on offense, and he's not exactly what you would call the modern player, but he's worked hard enough to sort of gain that, to earn that trust, to earn that respect in the offense, to allow him to sort of take over and stuff. And he's, to his credit, he's having the best season of his career. He's above, league average efficiency wise, and it's amazing because he's still playing the same game. And so I wanted to recognize that. Where does Drake stand with the Raptors? I think that Drake's come up, obviously as a celebrity.
Defensive stopper.
As a defensive stopper, yeah. Despite what Justin Holiday might refute. Yeah, man.
So there are a lot of reasons.
So many reasons, man. So many reasons. Dwayne Casey's had a emergent season. How do we look at Terrence Ross and Jonas Valanciunas now that their development has been pushed to the back burner in favor of winning?
Market value. That's what you look at them as,
right?
Those are market deals that they got before they had to. Look, man, I'm never a fan of, or not never, but like in the case of DeRozan, which I was wrong on, in the case of Ross, I don't like paying for potential that hasn't been realized yet, especially a year before you have to. So I thought I like the Valanciunas one just because like the market for centers is always going to be robust. But Ross, if Ross had a terrible season, he could have been looking at a Jeremy Lamb deal. But both of those end up looking like great gambles, as roster pieces or as trade chips.
Yeah, seriously, man, Ujiri, he's done a really great job.
One of those guys has got to go out to get Nick Batum.
Well, of course. Although apparently Warriors fans are really eyeing Nick Batum as a potential if we strike out on Harrison, or if we strike out on Kevin Durant and we don't want to pay Harrison.
Well, the thing is that I don't get, because to get Kevin Durant, you have to unload probably Bogut and Iguodala or one of those guys and two other pieces. Livingston. So I do that for Kevin Durant. I don't do that for Nick Batum. I love Nick Batum.
Batum's great. People sleep on Nick Batum.
But
Chandler Parsons, though, maybe. Hey, the guy with the fractured kneecap all the time.
Yeah, I'm not touching Parsons with his red tape on his knee now. Who am I kidding? I totally touched Chandler Parsons. All right, so the Raptors have 12 games left.
12 games.
5 of them at home.
Just 5, yeah.
Yeah. Well, it'll be 5 and 5 after this weekend.
True.
So it seems pretty even. They do a home road kind of thing. We're almost there, man.
We're almost there. Yeah, it's weird that the rest of the season is inconsequential. I mean, maybe we'll just wrap up on this. What do you want to see out of the Raptors? How do you want to see them finish up the season?
With DeMarre Carroll.
DeMarre Carroll, yeah.
I would like DeMarre Carroll to get into 6 games. Originally, I wanted 8. Returning Monday would have gotten him 10 games minus 2 back-to-back scenarios, so he would have gotten to 8 games. I'll settle for 6. I would like him to play at some point.
That'd be great. It would be. And
I think the Raptors without him can win a playoff series, maybe even 2, but they don't have a chance against the Cavs without DeMarre Carroll. And I think their upside and I think Carroll in some matchups shaves a game off a series.
Seriously, man.
Because he opens up so much for them. Even if he averages 8 points a game, the threat of him and the breathing room that provides compared to a Norman Powell or a James Johnson with no defensive drop-off, possibly even more defense depending on how healthy he is, and then the ability to switch across multiple positions if him and Patterson share the floor together on defense, he opens up a lot without having to do anything.
Yeah.
Just by his presence.
And I think it's being lost in all this. He's a really talented player, man. I mean, he got
also has deep playoff run experience.
Exactly. Last year in the playoffs, he was arguably Atlanta's best player. He put up 15 points, 6 rebounds, 2 assists, a steal. He was just really solid. Shot 40% from deep on 4.5 tries a game. That's really good. And you have to remember that he played through a knee injury as well after banging knees with LeBron and looked like his knee was screwed, and then ultimately his knee was screwed. But seriously, man, DeMarre Carroll is huge. I mean, it just reminds me, because the Raptors have a game coming up soon against, I think on Monday, against the Thunder. And it reminds me of the first huge win for the Raptors this season was when they moved to 5-0.
Road win,
exactly,
yeah.
on the road against OKC, and DeMarre Carroll played a huge part in that.
They won entirely with their defense.
Exactly, and DeMarre Carroll was part of that killer closing time unit, and that's the first thing that we got really excited about was, hey, look at the Raptors going to the small ball type look with Carroll at the 4. You're spreading the floor. You're able to guard everybody. You're still able to secure rebounds. And
I love that group, the Lowry, DeRozan, Joseph Carroll, Valanciunas look. I'm so intrigued to see what a Lowry, DeRozan, Carroll, Patterson, Valanciunas lineup could do at both ends of the floor, with how much, like, Patrick Patterson was not this Patrick Patterson when DeMarre Carroll was last around.
True,
those two guys as a combination offense defense forwards, that might be that could be really good.
Yeah, seriously. I think that Carroll is so much of Carroll's value is the versatility that he brings and the options that he gives you. And once you start needing these things, like in a playoff series, it's so much about matchups. But DeMarre Carroll, like, he's a guy that people are going to have to match up against, because the Raptors go to that killer small ball lineup. Basically, anytime the Raptors have a power forward who can stretch the floor, their offense goes crazy, especially with Lowry in the court, right?
Yeah, it's funny what happens when you either give space for Lowry and DeRozan for all these drives to the rim, or you give them options if you double on them. Okay, I gotta wrap this up. I gotta go. Hopefully next week we'll be talking about how DeMarre Carroll looked in his return Monday against the Thunder or Wednesday against the Hawks. Thanks for listening, everyone. We'll talk to you again next Friday. Will, have yourself a good weekend, buddy, and happy birthday, Kyle Lowry.
Happy birthday, Kyle Lowry, and have a good trip, Blake.
Hey, Will, do me a favor. Go have a cupcake or a piece of cake for Kyle Lowry, because I know he won't.
I will have all the carbs on behalf of Kyle Lowry. Over everything.
All right, everyone, carb up. Have a good weekend. Thank you.
The Rapcast crew on the numbers review. Hit the old kick drum like an alley-oop. Drop rhymes like dimes when I drop the hoop. You must tune in if you want the scoop. The Rapcast crew on the ones and twos.